This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to start this meeting, December 3rd, 2020, 6 p.m. of the Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Association Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. I'm just going to call the meeting to order. I will start the meeting tonight with a declaration of the state of emergency. Due to the nature of the declaration of the state of emergency due to novel coronavirus, COVID-19, pursuant to State Code 2.2-3708.2, this meeting is to be held by electronic communications via the web platform GoToMeeting. The catastrophic nature of this declared emergency makes it impractical and unsafe to assemble a quorum in a single location, and the purpose of this meeting is to discuss or transact business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the public body. A recording of this virtual meeting will be posted to the Fampo Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee webpage. The Bpac values all feedback received. However, during the course of the meeting, we ask that all comments from the public and/or from non-Bpac members be held to the public comment portion of the agenda, and that's item number 5. Thank you for that. And with that, I'll go to agenda item number 2, roll call. Thank you.
Good evening, members of Bpac. This is Leah Vigil. You may take your mics off of mute for roll call. I'll begin with Spotsylvania County and Bpac Chair Jacob Pastwick, who has called the meeting to order and is present.
Present.
Next on the list is Spotsylvania County Citizen Representative Kristen Harding.
Present.
Thank you. For Caroline County and Vice Chair of Bpac, Craig Pennington.
Present.
Citizen Representative for Caroline County, Kevin Whiteman. Stafford County, Brian Gouge.
Here.
Thank you. City of Fredericksburg, Eric Nelson.
Here.
King George County, Chris Clark.
Present.
Thank you. For VDOT, Linda Lasute.
I'm here.
Thank you. Friends of the Dahlgren Railroad Heritage Trail and Potomac Heritage Trail Association, Jim Lynch. I believe I saw your name on the list. You are present. Fredericksburg Trails Alliance and Fred Trails, Rob Maple.
Present.
Thank you. For Fredericksburg Cyclist Club, Spotsylvania Greenways Initiative, and Virginia Bicycle Federation, Stan Huey. I see you there. I marked you present. For GW Ride Connect, Lee Anderson.
Present.
Thank you. National Park Service, Kirsten Talkin Spalding.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. And Disability Resource Center, Deb Foltz.
I'm here, thank you.
Thank you. Roll call has been taken. You may now put your mics back on mute unless recognized by Chair Pastwick to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. I appreciate that. And I will take this time to welcome some new members to our Bpac. Linda Lasute from VDOT, Kristen Harding from Spotsylvania, and I appreciate your previous attendance in our meetings, and as well as Chris Clark from King George. So thank you and welcome.
Yeah, this is Stan Huey. If my name was called, my sound wasn't working.
Stan, I do believe we've had you. We saw you on the camera, so appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, the approval of the December 3rd, 2020 Bpac meeting agenda. Do we have any discussion on that? Hearing none, have any motion on the meeting agenda tonight?
I move to approve the agenda. I'll second Eric.
Okay. Excellent. Hearing a second, any additional discussion? Hearing none, please forgive my clock going on in the background. All in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, the motion passes. We will approve the December 3rd, 2020 meeting and move forward. Item number 4, approval of the October 1st, 2020 Bpac meeting minutes. Any discussion on that?
Chris Clark, King George County. Two things. One, Clark has an E on it, so that is on page 1 and page 4 for my last name. And then on page 4, I don't know if I misspoke and didn't say Dahlgren Railroad Heritage Trail, but the comment in parentheses is correct, and the words before it could be deleted.
Okay. Any additional suggested edits? Okay, hearing none, I will just point to one additional comment for myself on page number 5 for the minutes. In reference to a Dunkin' Donuts will be going in next door to the new Hardee's near the city of Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania County line along Tidewater Trail and a trail extender. And then reference the smart scale funding applications have been submitted to extend that trail to Shannon Airport. This is a friendly request for future information purposes or reference only, that the trail that's being referenced is also consistent with the East Coast Greenway and the Deep Run Spur. The East Coast Greenway is I would imagine everyone knows here, but a nationally significant trail corridor being planned between the state of Maine and Florida down the East Coast. And the Deep Run Spur is actually a trail corridor that's been adopted in the Spotsylvania County Trailways Master Plan. So I'm just requesting that we specify that that trail has importance for those trailways plans, and that's all. If we don't have any other amendments to that, I'll entertain a motion on this.
Motion to approve as amended.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
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 Okay, anyone against, please nay.
I'd like to abstain. This is Linda Lasute with VDOT since I wasn't here at the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Motion passes. We will update the meeting minutes with those proposed or those amendments. Thank you. Okay, item number 5 on this agenda this evening is for public comment. Last I understand, we had not received any public comment. However, I understand there was some interest on social media this evening, more so than in the past. So do we have any other public comments this evening?
I'd like to make a comment if possible.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hi. And I'm not sure if this is the appropriate forum for this. It may need to be directed to VDOT, but I'll direct it here at this time. I'm not a city resident. I am a Spotsylvania County resident. And for years, I've driven along the stretch of roadway that is both Fall Hill and Bragg Road. And with all the upgrades that have been made to Fall Hill and to Bragg Road, there was one small section of the roadway that was ignored to use for the pedestrians. There's a section in the 3400 block of Fall Hill Avenue that doesn't have any sidewalks there. And so pedestrians traveling in that section of roadway have to walk either in the road with the traffic, or they're walking in the mud, grass, muck, and such, traveling through that area. And so I just wanted to bring that to the area's attention and see if this is the appropriate forum to bring that type of an issue up.
Yes, sir. I would say that would be a very good point. Just to clarify for ourselves, on either side of that gap, is that a sidewalk or trail infrastructure there?
It is sidewalk up to the 3400 block.
Okay. We do have city and VDOT reps here. I'm not sure exactly where that's located. Looking, if we're bringing up a map now.
Yeah, if you go to the west from there, it's right by the intersection of River Road and Carl D. Silver Parkway. Right there. Yep. Yeah, so from the entrance to the neighborhood, there's sidewalk there leading to the entrance of that neighborhood on the corner of Fall Hill and River Road. And from there, it is all grass and mud all the way to Carl D. Silver Parkway. And every day, I travel that section of roadway every day, and I see countless numbers of people walking in the roadway, being nearly missed by vehicles, or traveling through the mud along the roadway. Most of the time, it's on the northern edge of that stretch that people are traversing in front of the church, and then there is a farm field that is adjacent and right at the corner there, leading up to Carl D. Silver Parkway. And that whole section.
This is Eric Nelson. We know about that gap, and in fact, we have HSIP money in place to take care of that. So we have a engineer that we're going to get under contract to do the to develop plans, and then we'll get that built.
That's fantastic.
Are you talking on the north side of Fall Hill Ave or the south side?
The north
side. If we have the funds, we'll try to get both sides.
Okay, because I've had that brought up to my attention too, that you have a sidewalk completed from what was the old Giant on Route 3 all the way down to around the Mormon church there, and then there's nothing up to the intersection with the gas station, and then down to the trail. And folks could ride a bicycle or something like that and stay off the road if they had a thoroughfare there.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate that comment. That is certainly something that our Bike Path Advisory Committee has been focused on. Carrie, maybe you can confirm this, but we are looking at Greenway Gaps as well within the region right now. And maybe this is too soon, but would that include also sidewalk gaps? Is that something else we'd be looking at?
Not for this specific Greenway project, but in general, yes, we're looking at sideway gaps.
Absolutely. Yep. Appreciate it. And sir, I do appreciate you bringing that up. We do have representatives from the city here this evening. It looks like they are working on that particular gap. So that's good news.
Great. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your attention on this and everything else you guys are doing.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. Any other public comments this evening? And Carrie, since we received our last email, have we received anything?
No, nothing else.
Okay. Okay, hearing nothing else, we will move on then from public comments to number 6, discussion and action items. And this evening, our first discussion action item, I would like to welcome our new Fampo administrator, Mr. Ian Ellis, from Fampo, and we welcome him here this evening. And I'll turn it over to Carrie. Thank you.
Well, I'm just echoing what Jacob said. We have waited a very long time for our new administrator, and we're very happy to have him. Mr. Ellis comes to us from Boston, and I'm going to turn it over now to him so he can talk to you about himself.
Thank you, Carrie, and thanks to the chairperson. It's great to join you tonight. I am recently from Boston. I was working at Transit Matters, a policy think tank in Boston. And before that, I took myself back to college at my age to go and do another master's degree at MIT in basically transportation planning. So that's kind of my immediate history. But as you can probably hear, I have an unusual accent. I'm historically, I've grown up in South Africa. So technically, I'm a 5th generation African, although you might not immediately realize that. And people often listen to me and then ask if I'm from Australia or New Zealand or Britain or all sorts of other places. The answer is no, I'm from Africa. So there you have it. My background is in politics in South Africa. I was in the National Parliament in South Africa for a couple of terms as a member of Parliament, which is similar to the US Congress. And before that, I was a local city councilman in the city of Johannesburg, also serving on the Transportation Committee and on the City Planning Committee. So I have a history of being involved in transportation and planning and politics in South Africa, and also planning and transportation at MIT and at Transit Matters in Boston. That's just a little quick history. I'm glad to be at Fampo and also working with the George Washington Regional Commission. I'm glad to meet all of you. I am a biker. I have a bike on my balcony right outside here. And before I had a car in Fredericksburg, I was occasionally cycling into the office. Now and again, I still work from the office, even though most of us are working from home or social distancing. So I'm an avid biker when I get the opportunity, and I'm very keen to see how we develop new and renovated bike paths, pedestrian paths, and everything else in Stafford, Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg, and the areas around us in Caroline County and so on. So thank you for the warm welcome. I look forward to meeting all of you in person when the environment allows us soon in the future. But nice to meet all of you, and thanks for the warm welcome. I look forward to the future.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. I really appreciate the wonderful introduction that you had to our group. Know that we're all within the region here, all within a short distance from where you are. I wish we could meet in person, but I guess we'll have to delay that for some time in the future. But thank you again. I appreciate your attendance.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So thank you very much. We will move on to item 6B, the update to the bylaw changes. Carrie, thank you.
Sure. You know that last meeting we made some changes to our bylaws, and I'm just throwing these up here to remind you and let you know that we went ahead and made those changes, and they're up on the website. So the first one was on page 2. If you don't mind moving to that one, Adam. Page 2, number 4. Let's see, right there. Yep. So that was just about adding new groups to membership. We didn't have a provision for doing that before, so we just added one. Shows that new community interest groups will be added to or removed from Bpac via majority vote of the members. Defunct community interest groups will be removed from the list by staff. So if they no longer exist, we'll just remove them. So that's what that one was about. The next one was section 2 on the same page. So scroll up just a little bit. So Bpac membership. This was just to correct, before it said locality, citizen, and staff representatives shall be appointed by the CAOs of the governing bodies. And as we discovered, many of our localities don't involve their CAOs, they just have their board of supervisors do it. So we just took that out and just have it say by the governing bodies of the George Washington region localities. So that was just a simple correction. The last part that we changed was on page 3, section 5, and we added the remote meeting language that was adopted as recommended by our Title VI coordinator, as the rest of our Fampo committees had to do. And that was it. That's pretty much it for our bylaw changes. Just want to let you guys know that we went ahead and got those all done and up on our website.
And thanks for that update. I think they're very simple updates, and we've vetted those, so I appreciate that update. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so item 6C, we have an action item this evening to add Friends of the Rappahannock to the list of member organizations.
So move, Eric.
Yes, sir. Do I hear a second?
I'll second. Second.
Okay. All in favor this evening?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any against? Hearing none, to add the Friends of the Rappahannock to the list of member organizations, the motion passes. And welcome to the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Thank you so much. This is Adam. I'm the river steward for City of Fredericksburg and Stafford. It's great to be a part of the group. Thank you for adding me.
Thank you, and thank you for your past participation in our group as well. We really appreciate the feedback.
Certainly.
Okay, moving on to item 6D, use of streetlight data to supplant bike counters. And this is an action item presented by Mr. Matthew Lehane.
All right, so Matthew was supposed to present this, but he can't be here tonight. He has a class that he has to present in. So you're gonna have to put up with me reading his presentation. So this is about the Fampo Bicycle and Pedestrian Counting Program that most of you know about. We use Fampo counters. We have 2 eco counters, but one of them is broken and it's extremely expensive to fix. But in the last few years, streetlight data has become much more sophisticated. This is a big data program that aggregates data from like your cell phones and other mobile technologies. This platform, we have access to it from VDOT, and we can use it to replace the broken counter and supplement our bicycle and pedestrian counting efforts. Next slide. Streetlight data is an on-demand mobility analytics platform. We can use it to do analyses like origins and destinations, travel time, and different link studies and different trail areas. So you can view the volume of trips over different periods of time, differences in day type, different vehicle types, trip time, length, speed, trip purpose, all different sorts of data types. Next slide. So it doesn't give exact counts, but it is useful for ratios and percentages depending on like time of year, time of day, and we can compare the different sites that we collect counts at with each other. So we can compare data by month, season, and year. We can compare data between locations that we count at. Next slide. So Matthew has been using streetlight data on some of our different counting sites. He did the canal path at the dog park, the Ferry Farm Trail at St. Clair Brooks Park, Mine Road at Shields Road, Spotsylvania Parkway at Yellow Birch Drive. Adam, that is blocked for me. Okay, there we go. VCR Trail at Alum Springs Park and VCR Trail at Legacy Woods Drive. Next slide. So on this comparison, first of all, what stands out to me is that in 2020, trail usage grew exponentially, which is what we've all expected and what we've all seen reading different articles and stuff about trail usage during COVID. But we can also see here and compare usage between the different sites. You can see that the canal path is very popular. The VCR Trail out at Legacy Woods Drive, now that's out in Spotsylvania towards Gordon Road, is somewhat less popular than some of the other sites. So you can see that streetlight is pretty useful in getting a comparison between the different areas that we take counts. Next slide. So how can we use this in the future? We can create a set number of locations per locality, and we can analyze the locations for each month, and we can present the data results to Bpac and other Fampo committees on a regular basis. So each type has pros and cons. We have 2 counters, but one of them is broken, like I said. And these can get accurate bicycle and pedestrian counts, but they must be removed and replaced every few weeks. This is a time-intensive task. It requires tools. We have to cut these wire strips. It's kind of difficult to do. They also get vandalized, and that's why one of them is broken. They've been vandalized more than once. This has been used as a comparative analysis between locations, and it works pretty well. Streetlight data cannot attain specific accurate count information for now, but it gets better all the time. But it can be used as a comparative count between locations. It can be used for monthly and yearly comparisons, and it can be completed with a click of a button without moving things around. There's no danger of vandalism, for example. So what we're asking, what we're saying is that we think that we can replace the broken counter by using streetlight data, and we can supplement our existing counter by using this technology. We want to know if you think that this is feasible. You think this is a good strategy for us to use?
Okay,
Jacob,
Yep. Yes, sir. Yes, Eric.
This is Eric. I had a couple of things just to throw out.
Go ahead.
I'm willing to be convinced that this is a good idea. I mean, I recognize the issue with the counters being kind of a chore. I don't know that comparative data is all that useful to us, but certainly the use data would be good. Which apparently at this point is not as accurate as we might like, although it seems to be. It seems to be interesting. What's the level of? I mean, how confident are we that we're close to to a count? Say like shown on the previous chart. I mean, for example, we're showing.
About that. Adam, do you have anything to say about that? I haven't used streetlight very much for this modality.
Sure, Mr. Chair, this is Adam Hager with Fampo. If I could chime in just briefly to answer Eric's question. So Eric, to speak to your question, what Streetlight basically produces is an index, and so they have lots of fancy sort of algorithms that they will use to determine what mode a trip is, and then also generate what they call, so the output type that they have within the platform is called volume, which I think the most closely associated term that we would typically use would be trip. And so based on what type of facility that trip takes place on, they can sort of estimate whether that's a pedestrian trip, a bicycle trip, if you will. So as far as confidence levels in using that type of data, I mean, Streetlight has been around for a while. I can't vouch personally. I've not read through the methodology that they use, but it's a widely accepted tool that they've just rolled out for bicycle and pedestrian planning.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I get it. But like, say we're showing, like, say the canal path at the dog park, we're showing 1,800 users. Is that reasonably accurate? I mean, are we going to be able to report this with some confidence? Relative confidence?
I think that's a really fair question, and I think that one thing that we could potentially do, given that we still do have at least one working counter that we know works, is basically develop a case study of sorts and place that in a place where we know gets lots of counts, like the dog park, for example, and compare that to what Streetlight says over that same period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, great idea. I think this is I think this is a righteous idea. I like it a lot. I just had those questions, but I would say press on. It sounds good, and I like the checking it with the counter just to see sort of what the relationship is. Thank you.
On the from what I understand of Streetlight, it can tell us a lot more than a simple counter can.
Yes.
A counter just tells you who passed that place, on a set day or during a set period of time. But Streetlight can tell where trips originate from, where they go to. From what I understand, it analyzes the the speed and placement of users, so it can tell whether it's a pedestrian or a bicycle or a car. And I think it can tell us a whole lot more than a counter ever could. And I think the limitation is not all your users will be carrying a smartphone with a location detector turned on, and I think that's the limitation from what I understand.
Yeah,
That's true.
This is Brian Huge. So Stan touched on one of my questions. So there's a mapping aspect to this where we can see where the trips originate and what the destinations are, and be able to use that to maybe figure out where the focus areas are for improvements and things like that?
Yeah, I went to the VDOT conference down in Charlottesville a couple of years ago, and they did a pretty extensive briefing on streetlight. And the example they gave was down in the Tidewater area of Virginia Beach, and they were showing roads usage and like trucks, where they originated from, where they're going to, which roads through the Tidewater area they used, and they could reach well out, even outside of the Tidewater area, as far as where these vehicles went from and to, so they knew origin and destination, which paths through. And I think one of the things they were looking at was how many of them were avoiding tolls, things like that. But with bicycle users, we can even tell which part of town they're coming from. Again, from what I understand of the briefing, which part of town they're coming from, which paths they're using, how they're going, and days, and there's a whole lot of data from the analysis that they can generate.
That's
I'm
correct.
assuming like one catch with this is obviously it's only going to count those people who have their phones with their GPS on, and whereas a street counter is theoretically going to pick up everybody. So there's going to be some discrepancy there just from that fact alone, I assume. But yeah, I think it's a pretty powerful tool.
But from what he mentioned is if we say put it at a couple different points and start getting a comparison between what streetlight tells us about that area usage and what a counter tells us, that would give us a multiplier or something that we could say, okay, this catches 80% or 90% or whatever.
Can I offer one sort of final thought there, Mr. Chair, as far as what Mr. Gooch suggested?
Yes, sir.
So to your point, Brian, so that's a really good point. Part of what why Streetlight doesn't index is they factor that in. So for instance, if they think that only 80% of pedestrian trips are with a cellular device that they capture data from, then they would say if there's 4 that they count, they would sort of normalize that within the index to 5, because only 80% of trips happen with a smartphone, for instance. So that type of factor is built into the index. But I think to Eric's initial point, I think that what we can do is build out sort of a case study of sorts to sort of test that in our local area at a couple different places over the next couple months to sort of see, is this something that could replicate something like a count, given that it uses these big data algorithms and that type of thing. The other thing that I wanted to address just quickly, I saw Mr. Lynch's question in the chat is, as far as the numbers that are listed here, it's not a direct correlation, but the closest equivalent as far as index for Streetlight index is a trip. So that would be sort of one trip that happens within that location.
Yeah, I think this is really good stuff. I mean, in my opinion, the raw number might be less important than what the trend is, right? So we want to see why people are using certain facilities and what impact our improvements are having on that use. And I think with this, you can have that comparative analysis and be able to see trending information to be able to really figure out where you should focus and what the benefit is of those efforts. So I think it's pretty neat.
Hey, this is Adam Lynch. Are those trips per day? Do you know, Adam?
Adam, that is a good question. I believe that is, you know what?
That would make sense.
We'd have to talk with Matthew, who gathered this data, but that would, yes, I agree with you. That would make the most sense, but we'll confirm that for you.
Okay, great. Yeah, because this is super useful. So I just actually had my second meeting as a member of the Fredericksburg Planning Commission. And just last night, there was an issue that came up with the Royal Farms that's been proposed to be built at the intersection of Lafayette and Blue and Gray Parkway, and it crosses the VCR trail. And somebody asked, do we have a trip count of how many people use that section of the trail? And they didn't have an answer. So I can just tell you that this kind of data would be really, really useful for a decision-making standpoint. So I really like the idea of using this.
Excellent. Any other discussion on this item? I have a couple of thoughts on this as well. I agree with everyone's points this evening. I do think, you know, there may be value in moving forward with this. I do like the idea, however, of comparing the counter to this, because if we have situations where people aren't carrying a phone or they have their location data off, as I understand it, it sounds like they may not be counted. So there is value in raw numbers in terms of who's actually there, but I also like the idea of having additional data. So my proposal will be to support moving forward with this. I don't know if we do it with this as a motion, but to have a separate project at least to try to come back and compare the raw numbers with a bike counter or, you know, a more traditional counter versus this. And I know we may not have as much data, but at least in terms of raw usage, we might be able to close that gap and have that information going forward. I agree with an earlier comment that, I think it was Eric's comment that comparative data may not be as good of a usage long term. I'm thinking about areas like the Virginia Central Trail. Right now, the numbers may not be, I'm looking at VCR Trail at Legacy Woods Drive, and it looks like it pales in comparison. I don't want, in the long-term planning of the VCR Trail, I don't want that to be construed as VCR Trail has no future or no one wants it out there. I know there's interest in it. Oftentimes it takes connecting it in with existing trail systems like we're trying to do right now. And if we were to connect into the city's trail system along the VCR, we may have some uptick in usage out there. So that's just kind of my thought on that. One question I have for Fampo staff about this has to do with concerns that may come up in the future. You know, you're collecting phone data, you're collecting, is there a concern on anonymity and privacy regarding this at all?
So this data is completely aggregated. It's not like it's not individual data. It's aggregated points. There's no personal data associated with any of the points.
And I just want to include that in the discussion this evening. I want to make sure that everyone's considered that, and I do appreciate that feedback. So that's good on my part, and it's also clear on that. So I appreciate that feedback. That's really all my points on this. I do appreciate everyone's feedback. And with that, Carrie, are you looking, it looks like an action item. So are you looking just for a motion to keep moving forward with this?
Yes, we're looking for permission to keep moving forward.
One question, is there a local cost associated with using Streetlight?
We, VDOT pays for Streetlight, and we are allowed to use through VDOT. So no, there's no additional cost to us.
Mr. Chairman, this is Kirsten talking. I just want to say that given the fact that we can look at trends with this and be able to see that and the value of looking at trends as I think that others have mentioned, I would propose that we move forward with utilizing Streetlight.
I second.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Do we have any other discussion? And if you'll bear with me, yeah, I think we'll do this one. And I'd like to actually add potentially a second action item, which would go back to the whole use of the street counters just as a comparison as a task as well going forward. But yes, with a second on the table, I do support this. So if we have any other discussion. Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any against?
Aye.
Okay, any against? I don't hear anybody. Motion passes. Then we'll move forward with the street light. I do appreciate that, and we'll look forward to hearing back from that. With that said, just based on discussion this evening, I'd like to propose a motion that we also do a comparison project for at least a number of these after it's initially rolled out, looking at the traditional street, the street counters versus street light, just so we can compare the raw volumes.
Jacob, this is Kirsten again. I really like that idea. That gives us a sense of one of the other commenters were saying how we could maybe prioritize or number what we'd be doing. So if there was only 4 that were counted, but we know that it's only an 80%, we could then count 5, sort of a weighted number that is helpful when we look at counters versus this. So that's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. So actually, I'll leave it to the group. If everyone wants to make a motion on that idea, and we'll take a second to vote on it.
This is Kirsten again, so I'll make a motion that we utilize the disposition between the street light data and real-time trip data to understand what numbering criteria might be helpful in weighting the numbers that come through street light data to give more accurate numbers to the user group numbers coming through in different trail areas. And Carrie, if you can make sense of that, more power to you, girl.
Hey, this is Lee. Kirsten, I would love to second your motion. I'm wondering if we need to wait until next time so we can have it written out in a way that Carrie knows exactly what we're approving. Perhaps that would be a good idea.
That sounds like a valuable thing, Lee, so that we have it written out that the idea here is that the streetlight data would be weighted against what we get through sort of a trip counter. And then we could say, yes, this is what we want to use to be able to give a more realistic number of users.
Absolutely. I am in support for this, but perhaps next time and we have a resolution in writing.
Okay. I'd be okay with that. That'd be fine. Carrie, can we bring this back? It's just another discussion item then for the following meeting.
We certainly can.
Okay. So, Kristen, then will you just remove your motion? Is that the normal protocol here?
Happy to do so, and if Carrie, you'd like to be able to come back together and we could kind of work out what that language would look like, we can do it through email afterwards. Thank you.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
All right,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to defer this item to the next meeting so that it can be written as a resolution to be acted on at the next bicycle pedestrian meeting.
Thank you,
I
Craig.
will second that motion.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Okay, looks like motion to defer then. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any against? Okay, then the motion is to defer that item and come back at the next meeting then. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 6E, and change of terms from bicycle and pedestrian to active transportation.
Okay,
Carrie?
so sure, thanks. So I guess earlier this year it was we talked about this term active transportation and we included it in our bylaws. And recently we at Fampo decided to change our 2050 bike ped plan to our 2050 active transportation plan, primarily because it's more inclusive than the term bike ped, because it refers to walking, biking, and using a wheelchair specifically, as well as skateboarding and riding a scooter. Infrastructure needs for these activities are similar, and all of those things are what we do. So in light of that fact, we're changing our document to the active transportation plan, the 2050 active transportation plan. What I want to know is, do we wish to change the bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee to the active transportation advisory committee to better reflect the fact that we plan not just for bicyclists and pedestrians, but for all of these folks? That's my question to put towards all of you. You can discuss it and make a decision.
I think we have more meaningful communication of what we are with the present term than we'd know, but I think the public would better know with our present terminology than with active transportation. I just of course sometimes I get accused of being stuck in the past on a lot of things, so that may not be
I agree with what you're saying. Bicycle and pedestrian is very descriptive. Perhaps we can say bicycle, pedestrian, and other active transportation. I'm not sure.
That would incorporate, but it's just bike ped seems to communicate our primary emphasis more accurately, I think. Where who knows what active transportation is as far as the public looking at our committee.
I agree with that. This is Adam from FOR. I think just being something of an outsider in this topic right now, I don't think active transportation is a widespread term, and it might be confusing to people who haven't been involved with planning before. If they hear it for the first time, they won't know what it is, and it might just go right in one ear and out the other.
I have to agree with Stan also. If we were called the Active Transportation Advisory Committee, I'm not sure that the gentleman that showed up at the beginning of the meeting for public comment would have found us. He had a concern about bicycling and being a pedestrian. And so that's probably how he found our committee. Without talking to him, I'm not sure. But I feel like Stan's right, and active transportation is not going to get the public out to get their input to us as easily.
Okay, I wanted to put that in front of you because there are other MPOs that are changing their group names to that, and I wanted to see what
Carrie.
you guys thought. Yes.
Carrie and Mr. Chair, this is Adam. Just wanted to mention two comments that were in the chat. David Lovegrove said, "May I suggest the word cycling instead of biking? I'm a runner and a cyclist." And then Jim Lynch, who I think is maybe having some microphone difficulties, said that another term we could use is non-motorized transportation. So just wanted to offer that from the chat. Thanks.
Thank you. But it is perfectly possible to have a Bpac that puts out an active transportation plan. So just wanted to let you guys know and give you a chance to decide.
I would think it's something where when that terminology gets maybe in more general usage, we might want to revisit it, I would think.
I think folks are starting to use it because it's more inclusive, like I said, of folks who need to get around but are not riding bicycles nor technically walking. But it is very new and a lot of people don't know what it means yet.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask, I can't remember, does our description include wheelchairs, skateboarding, and scooters and all that? I mean, when you look up our Facebook page or our page on Fampo, does it include all of these keywords that would come up in a Google search?
Looks like we're bringing up the language right now. One moment, please.
So perhaps we should include those keywords there. And I'm not sure if now is the time to change the name based on what other members have said, but I do think we should have those keywords for people who are searching out answers.
That makes sense. Okay.
My alternative would be just maintain the bicycle pedestrian and then just put a comma in active transportation to kind of cover all these other things. I mean, throughout the course of previous meetings, we've talked about, scooters and things like that, and trying to, how are we going to address some of these motorized modes of transportation? I was going to wait till the regional micro mobility policy discussion, but this kind of gets me to thinking about a comment that we received from the public back on August 6, 2020 from Ms. Love concerning reducing user conflicts along existing bike ped facilities. And I don't know, just kind of my passive thought based on some of the earlier discussions we had today is to maintain bicycle pedestrian, because those are clear tag words that someone might look for, but to maybe put a comma in active transportation is part of that. But that's just my thought.
Yeah. And the problem with using non-motorized is we are considering electric vehicles, class 1, 2, and 3 bicycles and things like that. So that sort of clouds that issue too.
Agreed. I am actively putting on my list for Christmas electric assist bike.
Cheater.
And this is
When I'm
Kirsten.
going up the hill,
Say,
I'm okay with that.
and I'll say for the Park Service, I mean, we're looking at class 1 as being allowed to be on our bicycle paths, not the ones that can go up to 28 miles per hour. So it's interesting, while we have a prohibition to motorized, not necessarily mechanized, but motorized transport, there are class 1 is electric is being allowed in Park Service right now. It's an interesting juxtaposition.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the Park Service also allows class 2. It's
right. Well,
3.
no, it has to be pedal assisted. It will not allow for simple, you twist the throttle and it goes kind of thing.
Yeah.
Unless it's for people with disabilities that need that type of equipment. Is that?
Yeah,
that is a fair clarification. Yes.
Okay. All right. As a Fredericksburg City resident who lives across from the bike path, I have a young adult son who's a wheelchair user. I have a dog that likes to walk on the bike path. I think speed is sometimes the issue that I run across when I'm biking myself or out with my son or out with my dog, that people that are, I want to call them professional bikers because they're going at rapid rates of speed, is something that we need to address at some point in time. Maybe not tonight, but I I ride my bike, but when I come across somebody and somebody else is coming, I slow down almost to a stop. Some people whiz by you, go in and out. It's like the Indy 500 sometimes. And I think it's a dangerous situation, particularly with families with small children or people with dogs or whatever. So I don't know when's the appropriate time to talk about different trails that we're discussing that some are lower speed and some are higher speed. I mean, if you're a high speed racer, I guess you're sometimes on the regular road.
We've been discussing that issue with a lot of the trails around the state, most principally with the Cap to Cap trail. And the problem when you start trying to regulate speed is how do you enforce it?
Well, that I understand that. That's true. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Chuck Koch, and this is my first meeting. But I know some elderly people who are in their 70s who will not use the Fredericksburg Trail and the canal path because of the issue that was just mentioned regarding speed and safety. So I've heard that from other Fredericksburg citizens as well, and just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, and I think from that standpoint, just based on some of the concerns that we've heard, and especially some of these emerging popularity of alternative means of use of these trails, again, I'm not going to put a motion on the table. I'll welcome the committee to do that, but my thought would be to emphasize bicycle pedestrian. However, to put a comma, active transportation, and make sure that we include that in future planning efforts and, trailways plans and recommendations for design standards for these. Our roads have rules and regulations. We probably do the same thing for some of our developing bike and pedestrian infrastructure, which is in some areas in its infancy yet, in some areas a little bit more well established. So that's just my thought on that. Any other discussion this evening before I look for a motion?
This is Linda with VDOT. I would just recommend that somewhere on your website, whether it's the Bpac page or someplace else, that active transportation is defined.
Good comment. Thank you. Agree.
It wouldn't be applicable here, but at some point it might be good to have and somehow publicize rules or expectations for use of the downtown trails. I'm probably one of the guilty participants that's a faster rider through that area, and that I take my road bike and use part of the trail, where it's appropriate, but I do keep it like below 15, and but you see people with their ears covered, with headphones. Well, they can't hear somebody say passing left, when they do that. So things like no ear blocking headsets or no speeding past 15, things like that, at least we can set the expectations, even if they might be difficult to enforce.
So to the group then, is anyone thinking that, just even considering, I agree with this, the idea that active transportation should be fully defined, so it's clear to everyone if we do add it. My thoughts again would be not to replace the existing bike and pedestrian, but just to add it to it. Would anyone support deferring this item to make sure we have a definition that everyone can consider first and then moving forward? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
This is Kirsten. I also move that we, Jacob, that we modify the terminology used to include active transportation, not to supplant what we already have, but to add active transportation almost as an educational component to help folks understand the broad nature of what the trails are meant to be as multimodal.
So was that a motion to defer?
No, sir, that was meant to be a
Okay.
motion to accept it as an ancillary addition to the terminology.
So that would be on our web page.
That would be my understanding, or any other publication sort of thing. That's what I was hearing folks saying, that it would be helpful. And from what Carrie's saying is, it's also what folks are moving towards. And so we can actually use it as an educational component to help folks understand when we say active transportation, that we mean it to include bicycle, pedestrian, and then these other opportunities as well.
So Kirsten, would you, is your motion to actually make the title of the group bicycle, pedestrian, and active transportation? So we'd be like Bpac instead of Bpac?
That's a
Or is
great
this
question,
just
Lee.
for the description?
No, I think it is just a describer. That is a very good question, Lee. No, I think that it is really just a describer for us to help folks introduce people to the term that may not already be aware of it.
Okay, I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, hearing none, motion passes. Thank you for that.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the Regional Micromobility Policy Subcommittee.
Okay, so a lot of the discussion that we were just having also pertains to this. So micromobility, that may be another thing that we need a definition of. It is very much part and parcel of active transportation. Micromobility is not just scooters, although the term has come about and been bandied about at the same time as scooters have become popular. Micromobility includes bicycles and skateboards and other personal ways to get around. So a few meetings ago, we were talking about maybe working together to develop a regional micromobility policy, sort of get ahead of the greater adoption of things like scooters, and the fact that we have a problem with speed on some of our trails where bikes and scooters are mixing with pedestrians. So why develop a policy? Scooters and bicycles and hoverboards are becoming a larger part of our transportation environment. They do support public transit, mobility equity, and community health, and they can replace cars for short trips and improve congestion and parking issues. But without a policy in place, they can cause significant problems in the community. Developing a regional policy will provide guidance to our localities and consistency for users across the region, assist in active transportation infrastructure planning region-wide, and put more focus on first mile, last mile uses, supporting integration with transit infrastructure planning going forward. Next slide. So my proposal is that we come up with a regional micromobility policy subcommittee, staff liaison, me, and this is an arbitrary number, 3 Bpac members. We can have more if you think, but not too large because it should be concentrated. The subcommittee would research regulations, best practices, and experience of other jurisdictions and report back with recommendations to the full Bpac committee in April. And then we would take that report to the policy committee. And then the policy that we come up with will be included in our 2050 active transportation plan and shared with the localities. I feel like this is needed because we're getting all these comments about problems, and we could put something together that would help us, would help the localities, would get started on this. What do you guys think?
I think it's okay with me.
I think it's a good idea to get to discuss this and not be behind the 8 ball, to get in front of it.
This is needed, and we have a lot of areas that are doing similar things. I know what's going on. You know, they've developed policies in the Charlottesville area, and they're sort of the leading edge of this. And I think it's something that if we don't do it now, we're going to see the need not too long.
So who wants to be on the committee? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I agree with that. As an action item here, are you looking for support also for the size of this subcommittee as part of this, or what's the raw action item that we're looking for tonight?
The action item is, should we develop a subcommittee and who wants to be on it? I propose it should be 3 Bpac members, but if somebody feels strongly that there should be a different number, I'm open to that.
I will go ahead and make a motion that we do create a subcommittee on regional micromobility that has 3 to 6 members on it.
That sounds like a good number.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion, a second, to create a regional subcommittee on regional micromobility with 3 to 6 members. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? Okay, hearing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And just to follow up on that, then in terms of the actual subcommittee size and the selection of members or volunteer, we'll follow up with that at a later meeting, I assume.
We can either do that or we can correspond over email. Do you think it's appropriate to have folks who are interested in being on the committee email me?
I would be happy with that if they're members of the Bpac, just provided that the rest of the Bike Path Advisory Committee know who's already expressed interest in joining. So that'd be fine with me.
Okay, so let's do that then. If you're interested in being on the committee, go ahead and email me, and hopefully that will be between 3 and 6 people.
If anyone has any heartburn with that idea, I'm happy to discuss it. I just think it's valuable for the rest of the group to know who's getting onto that group and expressing interest, so we can know when we meet our 3 to 6 quota, I suppose. So.
Yeah, as soon as I get the number of folks, I will email everybody with the names of the people who are on the committee.
Mr. Chair, just a suggestion. The chair should probably be part of that committee, whether they were on that subcommittee at first or not, just so when we come back together for this, they're aware of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. With my position seeming to expire, Craig, are you volunteering to do that for yourself next time?
Well, yeah, that's how it would work. But after my year of chair is done, then the following chair would replace me on the subcommittee there.
Okay. With that being the case, is this something that we could vote on, or we would want to vote on, Craig, just from your opinion?
All we voted on was creating the subcommittee. I think we can vote on the contingency of the subcommittee at the next meeting.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on then. With that being said, let's move into the election of the vice chair. It's an action item this evening. I will be, I've served my year here, and I will be shifting out of my chair role. Craig Pennington will be, you all will be in good hands with Craig coming in from Caroline County. I will be taking the chair position. But with that being the case, we do have a vice chair position that's going to become open, and that's a 2-year role with an eventual step up after a year into that chairman position. So with that being the case, I would like to ask for nominations for vice chair this evening.
I will nominate Kirsten.
I second that.
Oh, Leah, you're so mean.
I just want to confirm, is that Kirsten from the National Park Service or our new member from Spotsylvania County?
My apologies to the new member. I was talking about the National Park Service.
Okay, thank you.
Just a reminder that it was her that made vice chair a 2-year role.
Oh, God, that's just mean, man.
Okay, so I hear one nomination for vice chair. Any others?
I'd like to nominate Brian as vice chair.
And I now hear Brian from Stafford County, I assume, also nominated for vice chair this evening.
Mr. Chairman, I move the nominations be closed.
Oh, that was fast.
My microphone.
I will second that.
Okay, the motion on the table is that the nominations be closed. We have 2 nominations for vice chair this evening, and a second. All in favor?
Brian's didn't get seconded. I'll second Brian's nomination so that it's accurate. And then I'll second that motion.
Yeah, let me just do this. We're going to close it. Any against? Okay, motion passes. We are basically down to 2 vice chair positions or vice chair elections this evening. Brian from Stafford County and Kirsten from the National Park Service. And with that said, do we have any other motions then to move forward?
Well, we have the nominees, so if we're going to have the election tonight, I'd say we're there. I think we almost have to have a roll call, don't we?
Yes, we do have to have a roll call. So the
Actually, we could do it by division.
How would that work, Kirsten?
I think Leah was suggesting that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Leah.
Yeah, we could do roll call. When the more I think about it with the virtual environment, that would probably be better.
I would like to actually, I'm just looking at this is kind of a new for me, so I'm sorry all. I've not really done, the vice chair and chairman we did last year was very informal, so bear with me here for a moment. This isn't something I'm very familiar with, but do we have any discussion from the nominees? Is there any disinterest in being serving in one of these roles from either of the candidates?
I will say, this is Kirsten, in speaking to my competition, Brian, I know that there are great opportunities in the Stafford area, and I see Brian as sort of the up and coming area. Stafford would be well poised to be our vice, just saying.
Here, here.
Thank you very much, Kirsten.
We could actually set this up to be a vote by ballot. The link could go out tomorrow or Monday for everyone to vote by ballot.
Would it work if we just sent out an email right now?
It doesn't take effect until the February meeting. So, I mean, if we want to send out a ballot tomorrow or everybody send an email after the meeting or tomorrow, can we take care of it that way?
That's a great idea. I like that, Lee. Thanks.
We had originally set this up to be a roll call vote, but if you wish it to be anonymous, then that's fine too.
Mr. Chair, this is Leah Vigil. The only concern with this is that it is a public committee. So your votes normally are part of the public record. And I would also just make note that Kirsten was both nominated as well as placing a nomination. It might be easier if she's interested in just resigning her nomination, and then you just have one one person, and then you all vote for that person.
Lee, that sounds great. Brian, are you willing to accept the nomination for vice chair? I hear that as an acceptance from Brian. I will withdraw my nomination for vice chair, and that leaves one candidate unless there is any issues with Brian.
I think that makes this vote easier this evening. If we have one.
Mr. Chairman, I move we elect Brian by acclamation.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to have Brian as the vice chair position by acclamation. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Any against? Okay, the motion passes. Welcome to the Bpac vice president position. Thank you.
Way to go, Brian. Thanks for your service, buddy.
Thanks for setting us straight, Leah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to item number 7, correspondence this evening.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I was going to discuss that, and as you can see on the screen, I was just going to briefly refer to the letter from Bpac endorsing Stafford County and their smart scale application for bike ped improvements. And then the second letter is just the appointment, the official appointment of Chris Clark to the Bpac committee. That is all, and I will turn it over to Ms. Barber for the staff reports.
Okay, this is a picture, a map of the Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail and its route within our region. And the reason I'm posting this here is that they are beginning their strategic partnership plan. They had workshops this week, and I attended part of that. And they're trying to get everyone together to plan their vision and their goals and objectives to get this this trail to be what they want it to be. And I think that this will be helpful as we think about the development of our own greenway. I didn't get to do as much of this workshop as I wanted to, but they're going to have more next week, and I'm going to be attending those. Kirsten, I know that you also went. Do you have anything to say about it?
No, I'm sorry that today I wasn't as engaged as I could have been. I think that they're really looking forward to kind of filling in some of the gaps, and they're recognizing Ann O'Neill, who has been the Park Service person that's been strongly connected with this, reached out to me individually and said she's super excited to see what we're able to do in both Heads Up Brian, Stafford, and Caroline County, and to further along the Potomac Heritage Trail. And they're also looking at opportunities for marketing and bringing in user groups into the area, as well as recognizing the local folks that are using the trailway.
Great. Yeah, I'm hoping that we can use a bit of the playbook in developing our own greenway, which I'm working on right now. So that's really all I have to report.
Carrie, if I may, I've also been taking part in as much as I can with these. And the Trailwell's feasibility study that we have the grant for to work on, we'll be able to connect very well with this project, with the Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail, and hopefully being able to connect our region well into it. So yeah,
I didn't realize you were here. I'm sorry. I know that you attended as well.
That's okay. I was hit or miss and in and out, and you know, it's one of those things when you're actually in the office, it was very distracting with trying to do 4 hours of meetings today with that. So yeah, or 4 hours yesterday and 2 hours today. So it's been very good. But it's kind of awkward with King George has the rail trail as part, but no other county-owned trails. So as we work into this feasibility study and work long-term, it will be good to work all this together.
Yeah. It's exciting.
This is Kirsten again. I will say that actually, I think that this is a really good opportunity for the counties and municipalities to sort of amplify the efforts for this multimodal transportation throughout the area, whether it is connectivity between areas of interest for your folks that live locally, or bringing in tourism dollars and long-term travelers along this route. I think that this could be a real positive for many of the municipalities in the area, and look forward to working. Chris, I appreciate the stuff you've been doing online as well with the planning efforts.
I agree with you, Kirsten. This is Linda from VDOT, and I've sat in intermittently, mostly yesterday, but also today with those meetings. And then, like you said, Carrie, there are 2 more next week.
Sounds like quite a few of us attended. That's great. So that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much for the staff report. We're on agenda item number 9, member reports. I request that we can go through the roll call so we can call out everyone individually if possible for the member reports.
I'm happy to do that for you. We'll go ahead and start with Spotsylvania County. Usually the chair likes to go last. If you would like me to reserve you for last, I will start with Citizen Representative Kristen Harding.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Nothing to report today.
Right. Caroline County, Craig Pennington.
Nothing to report right now.
Stafford County, Brian Gouge.
I just had a quick report. So Mr. Chairman and Ms. Barber already know this, but a few weeks ago, Brandon Brown and myself met with Sarah Sanford with East Coast Greenway. There had been, I believe, a fatality in her neck of the woods on the Greenway route, and she had heard a concern from one of the cyclists in Stafford about our designated route and it being unsafe. So we just talked about some potential alternative routes through Stafford County. I don't know if she may have reached out to some of you as well, but she did extend an invitation to join one of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee meetings to talk about the Greenway. I know that's been done in the past, but I just wanted to let you all know that invitation is out there. I thought it might be good to have her on to talk about some of the regional greenways efforts and that sort of thing. So just want to let you know about that. That was all I had.
Okay.
Yes, I just for a second, we are aware of that intent of the East Coast Greenway meeting with the Bpac. So from the discussion that I've had talking about this, yes, we do intend on having the East Coast Greenway attend a future meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have also taken note of that. For the city of Fredericksburg, for member reports, Mr. Eric Nelson. King George County, Chris Clark.
Yes, last meeting I mentioned that we had the approval for the safety signs at the Dog and Railroad Heritage Trail crossings. Those were installed the last week of October, and 3 of those signs, Indiantown Road, Comorn, and Owens, all appear as items of need on the 2045 George Washington Regional Bike and Pedestrian Plan. So we checked 3 boxes, which is pretty good.
Great, thank you. For VDOT, Linda Lasute.
Well, let's see. We just about finished all the smart scale information that was needed, including bike ped information. So that's been a huge help to kind of get it from our lab over to central office. And even though COVID shows no signs of stopping, we are bringing consultants back on board to initiate some of the different studies, like the Lafayette Boulevard multimodal study. So that should be launching at the beginning of the year. And I just wanted to update everyone on those 2 items.
Great, thank you. Friends of the Dahlgren Railroad Heritage Trail and Potomac Heritage Trail Association, Jim Lynch.
Yes, ma'am. Hi. Yeah, let's see. Number one, I would like to express my appreciation to Mr. Clark and the Department of Transportation for the installation of the crosswalk warnings signs on the trail. Those are extremely helpful to improve the safety of our users of the trail. We are continuing to work for improved safe ways to get from the trail to the park at Caledon. We're working in particular on the eastern connection between the park along Route 218 to get to the trail where 218 goes over the trail. That's a big need. And I'd also like to express our appreciation for a grant that we've been awarded lately to improve our parking at two of our smaller areas on Comorn Road and Indiantown Road. These are small parking areas and very rough, unimproved. So it'll be a big help to have the grant money to work on those. So that's all I have for right now.
Thank you. For Fredericksburg Trails Alliance, Rob Maple.
Yeah, thank you. Last meeting I spoke to receiving a matching grant from IMBA. Just happy to say that we have met the donation requirements to meet that grant, and in addition have purchased all the materials needed for 33 signs at the quarry trails, and then we'll eventually extend out to Mach Run Reservoir. But we do have the materials for that and look to start installing that signage actually this weekend. So pretty long process, but definitely very happy to finally have signs on our off-road trails. That's all I have.
Excellent. Fredericksburg Cyclist Club, Spotsylvania Greenways Initiative, and Virginia Bicycle Federation, Stan Huey.
The only question I had was just referencing a specific request I've had, and I guess that would be to Fredericksburg. And you said it was in the mix, is just completion of the sidewalk from Riverside Manor up to Carl D. Silver and with a crosswalk. And I understand that is in plan. So that's the only thing I have.
Great, thank you. GW Act, Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Leah. Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. National Park Service, Kirsten Talkin-Spalding.
I just want to say thanks to the folks that have been so engaged with the Potomac Heritage Trail, National Scenic Trail work, and also a huge thank you to Jacob, for really just stepping up as our first chair for this group and sort of defining that role and making that happen for us. So much thanks to him for that work.
Great, thank you. And then finally, Disability Resource Center, Deb Foltz.
No report.
Thank you. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Pastwick.
Okay, thank you very much. I have two items this evening. The first just is actually going back to our minutes from October 1st, 2020, and an item actually, just to speak back to Kirsten, this is actually a perfect transition. As part of the minutes from back in October, National Park Service had spoken about that they would like to collaborate with other organizations and services to create an all-inclusive 8,000-acre connector network to historic and natural park resources while promoting health, safety, and recreation. I just wanted to bring it into the discussion early on, so it's at least on the radar, that Spotsylvania County, with actually a support letter from the National Park Service back in 2011 and 2012, we were able to submit a Virginia Land Conservation Fund application for recreational trail easement down the Virginia Central corridor, extending from Jackson Trail east to Brock Road. And we were fortunate enough to actually receive that funding and have secured that recreational trail easement. So it is a consideration for the National Park Service going forward. I think it would be a real good part of that discussion is how that connector can work with Jackson Trail and go on into our Nye River trail system. I just wanted to put that on the radar for going forward. My second item this evening is just to thank you all. Some of you all have been with me from the beginning, and some of you all have just been added tonight. I've enjoyed this chairman position. I also appreciate you all bearing with me. Again, as Kirsten had stated, this kind of was our maiden voyage to run the Bpac as an annual, continuously meeting group. You know, we used to just meet around the regional bike ped update at Fampo, and now we've kind of turned this into everyone's kind of checking up on one another and seeing how things are going, and the public is being engaged, and we're hearing different things and identifying gaps in the system that are becoming problematic and trying to address those. So I really do appreciate everyone's feedback. I appreciate you all bearing with me at times. There are certain parts of this task that I was very hesitant with because I'm not tremendously familiar with some of the processes on these votes. As you all probably could see this evening with the vice chair, I did my best, and I do appreciate everyone's feedback. But again, thank you all very much. I don't believe I'm going anywhere. I've been with the Bpac for many years, but my term here as chairman is terminating, and I know you will be in good hands with new chairman Pennington, who's a good friend, and you know, I've enjoyed working with him over the years, and he's now out in Caroline County. And I welcome Vice Chair now, Brian from Stafford. I know you will be in good hands with them, so I appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Hear, hear.
So with that being said, looks like we are wrapping up this evening, and I'll accept a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
I'll motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say before that, I'd like to make a motion to state that Jacob has done an excellent job as chairman this last year.
Second that motion.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Anyone against? I don't, it's not going to hurt me one bit. Okay. Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you very much, all. I appreciate that.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, that wraps up tonight's meeting. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.